set it up. It was supposed to start at 7:30.
Yeah. It's
Oh, okay. I see. All right.
Only
It's just-
because I didn't want to have to trim it.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. It's up now. It was supposed to start.
And the website says 7, so.
Yeah. It's
Oh, okay. I see. All right. How
Only
come I'm not
because I
seeing
didn't
it on
want to
my
have
end?
to trim it.
Oh, okay.
Are you on YouTube as well with your presentation and everything?
Mine says waiting for Santa Barbara Amateur Radio Club to start.
Oh, I just saw it live.
Yeah, but if I click on the website and go and on the link that's there, I don't get it. Why is that?
Huh.
Oh, let me go back.
Yeah, it does this. It creates like a new instance of it for some reason instead of using the one that you've already scheduled.
No.
Okay. Let me go to YouTube Studio. I wish they make this a little easier, but
Yeah, it's kind of
okay.
goofy.
Mr. Michael, hi there.
Hey,
Greetings. Look at that mustache on him.
Oh, all right. I see what's going on.
great.
Well,
What happened?
We've got one going live here. Let me get the new URL.
Okay.
I'll put it on the website here.
Hey, Eric. Greetings.
Oh, I guess I don't have to schedule it.
Start the video. Why is that not working?
What
Please
video?
select
Hey, guys.
another video camera.
Oh, I don't know. You don't have it on. Hey, Eric.
Hey, Dennis.
Good audio.
Oh, I would hope so. For quieting.
Yeah.
Eric.
well,
Hello.
Howdy, Santa.
Santa has arrived.
Yeah. I wonder if WXE is going to show up here tonight.
Wayne, Jonah came into the store today and was bragging about the crimper that you have, but he couldn't remember the brand. It was a Williams or something like that.
Daniels.
Yeah.
Try it now, Levi.
Hold on, I'll be right back, Green.
Yeah, it's one of those things you need to find on eBay because they're like $400. If you just buy them.
Wayne, Jonah came into the store today and was bragging about the crimper that you have. I couldn't remember the brand. It was a Williams.
So somebody's listening to the YouTube, right?
Yeah, right now,
It has
Levi.
a delay.
Yeah.
Got the
Yeah, it's
long
one of those
delayed
things
echo
you need to
there.
find on
It's like 3 or 4.
eBay because
About
they're
a-
like $400. If you just buy them.
Wayne, Jonah came into the store today and was bragging.
Oh, good.
Echo.
I feel like I'm in a reverse time warp.
Somebody's listening to the YouTube, right?
Right now,
It has a delay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got the
The minute delay.
delayed echo
You need to
there.
find on
It's like 3 or 4.
eBay because they're like $400. If you just buy them.
Oh, good grief. Oh, good grief.
Echo.
I feel like I'm in a reverse time warp.
Somebody's listening to the YouTube, right?
That didn't turn out the way I
Yeah.
wanted.
Well, that might just keep repeating forever. Sounds like
Yeah,
will.
someone needs to turn off their microphone.
somebody created an endless loop.
Mute his microphone.
You're gonna have to stop this endless loop somehow.
Mute it.
Like I'm in a reverse time warp.
Levi, who was away.
Oh, is it me? I don't know.
YouTube is coming through your mic, I think.
No, I don't think it's me. I don't have it open.
Unmute.
It will.
That's my push to talk button. Somebody created an
Mute.
endless loop.
Mute everybody, Levi, and it'll stop.
Stop this endless loop somehow.
Mute it.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good idea. Just mute
Mike, I
everybody.
see your glacier and raise you a mountain. Who's away?
Oh, is it me? I don't know.
Just mute everybody.
No, I don't think it's me. I don't have it open.
Whoever the host is, probably.
Yeah, whoever the host is. Mute everybody, Levi, and it'll stop.
Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you mute everybody?
Good.
Oh,
is it me? I don't know.
Just mute everybody.
Yeah, where is it?
Whoever the host
There
is.
should be a mute all.
Yeah, whoever the host is. Mute everybody. Everybody can mute themselves. I just did.
Brian, can you hear
Look at
me?
the
Yeah, I
bottom.
can hear you.
Can you mute everybody?
I'm trying to find it.
Good.
Should be at the bottom under participants.
That wasn't him alive that time, Brian, when he asked you.
There should be a mute all.
Well, somebody's got the YouTube running and the.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It's like looking at yourself between two mirrors or something.
Should be at the bottom under
Under participants.
That wasn't him alive that time, Brian, when he asked you.
There should be a mute all.
Well, somebody's got the YouTube running and the.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Ryan, look under participants.
Between two mirrors or something.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Under participants.
Yeah.
Yeah, mute that person and you'll be fine.
Got the YouTube running and the.
for everybody. Let it
Mute
know.
everybody. Ryan, look under participants.
Between two mirrors or something.
Okay. Oh, I
Is it
see.
you, Brian?
Under participants.
Yeah. Might have been me.
It was you.
I don't know how. It wasn't even playing.
No, and not only that, but you're unmuted and we can't hear it.
What?
Well, he stopped it. I think he stopped it.
All right. That was weird.
That was weird.
I only had one page up and there was nothing playing. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Well, we could
That's
try
much
unmuting
better.
one at a time.
Yeah.
And see who it is.
Brian, maybe your audio is going back the same way Levi was doing it, where you don't have to have playing. It's just going, into the audio codec and out the.
Probably because I couldn't hear the what I was hearing was coming from this system. And all I had was the page in my browser for the YouTube studio, and it wasn't playing anything. I just deleted the meeting that was going to come up at 7:30. And anyway, so as soon as I closed that page, it stopped playing. Weird.
Les, did a balloon just blow up in your house?
That was Doc.
Oh,
He sneezed.
Les looked up right when that happened, like something had popped in his house or something.
It was Doc.
Coincidence.
Dorothy, where's your face?
She's muted. There she goes.
Oh, there she goes.
Ah,
I have to turn the light on.
now where'd Dennis go? He was here.
He's in the dark.
I'm talking to Jim on SXB. I'll be right back.
Okay. Oh, I see,
Yeah,
on
Roger.
DMR.
Yeah, I'm on DMR. He's the one with that. I'm talking for a second. I can send you the website for it.
Well, if I wanted to participate, you just send me the room number, the link to the room, to the Zoom room. I don't know what they call them. But anyway, the main number, I guess. Anyway, no, that's okay. I'm getting ready to hold it up here and just reading until I start seeing the
One of you guys is a ventriloquist.
defense.
That's
Okay.
Ken. He does
Ah,
that.
very good. All righty, you take her easy, and I'll talk to you probably tomorrow.
Hey, Dennis,
Looks
tell
like
Jim I
Levi
sent,
over here.
tell Jim I
What?
sent him the link.
Oh, Jim, Ken just sent you the link so you can pop on. He just sent it to you. Oh, yeah, we're inviting you. See you in a little bit. WB6OBV. Yeah. Oops, I'm sorry about that. I thought it was muted. Anyway, sorry about that. He's coming over. Now can you see me? Because I'm have the light sort of. I'm just sitting back in my chair, operating chair and taking it easy.
Not yet. Wayne, are you in your shop?
No,
Hey,
I'm just
Dorothy.
in my library, or what we call the uninhabitable room. Long story, I'll tell you sometime why it's called that.
It's dark. I can just see a few things. I thought it looked like the shop, but
Hey, DSO.
Coldest.
I don't hear you on 2 meters much. What are you up to?
Oh, I'm sleeping in.
Oh, boy.
I have that, and it's a lot of effort to do the Echo Link.
Hasn't Dennis come over and take a look at that microphone for you?
He hasn't yet.
he knows he's
Great.
supposed to. He came by the store yesterday and told me that he knows that it's his obligation. But I told him I heard you on last week and you sounded phenomenal. So he said, no, that was a radio I went to or something like that.
Did you get a chance to take the radio to the club last Saturday, Dorothy?
No, I couldn't. I haven't had a class, but I'm going to try to come tomorrow at 9 o'clock. But then I have
Oh,
to,
hold on. I'll find out.
then I have to go to another meeting at 10:30. So
Jim said he has a whole box full of microphones there that he might be able to fix you up with just what you need.
Hey, Ken, did you send him an email or did you send him SMS or messenger or something?
It was an email to James Ray Scott at Gmail.
Okay. James Ray Scott at Gmail. Hey, Jim, it's James Ray Scott at email.
And for people at the club station tomorrow morning at 9:17, there's supposed to be a rocket launch. So jump out in the parking lot and look to Lompoc.
yeah,
Well, that's what he sent. And do you have it still? Because I can send it here.
What was the time again, Wayne?
9:17 is the nominal launch. And it's a fun one because it returns. It's a SpaceX, so you get to see it go up, and then you can also see the burn as it comes back down.
Wayne, is it landing on a launch spot or out on a platform in the ocean?
I don't know.
I think it's a platform in the ocean.
Yeah, they put a barge out there, I think.
It's a drone barge.
I saw the ISS last night was the best sighting for a 5-minute view. It was the best sighting last night. It's just ended now, but there'll be another one tomorrow.
I tried a couple of days ago, but it was so overcast I couldn't see anything.
Mike, did you try using the repeater when it was passing over?
Say again, Ken?
Did you try using the repeater when it was passing over on the ISS?
No, I did not. I was busy looking in the sky. I can do it tomorrow night, though. Tomorrow night, it will fly by west-southwest. It'll be the brightest passing from 7:30 to for 5 minutes. 7:30 PM. No, 5:30 PM, sorry. 1700 hours.
It's fun to
17:30.
talk to them. I've done it a few times. Hey, Bruce. Jim should be checking in. I sent him an email to his SXB one.
How come, Dennis, why didn't you just go to the website?
I don't know. I don't know. He could have. That's what,
Because
anyway,
the link's
oh, well.
right there on the main page, on the front page.
That's what I sent him. Yeah, I don't know why he didn't think about it.
So I put my Christmas lights up today in the front.
All right. I'll have to
The
Might
stop
as well.
by
There's
them.
not going to be any Thanksgiving anyway.
Next 3 days, more lights, and I won't light none of it until after Thanksgiving.
You tell him.
Somebody got a dog.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Hey, Brian, did you know that your posting on the website says that it's at 7 for the Zoom meeting, but 7:30 on the YouTube?
Yeah,
Oh, so YouTube is a half hour delayed, or it's?
no,
Oh.
you don't need to check into the Zoom thing.
Till 7:30. There's Jim.
All you do is watch the Zoom. That's when the meeting starts. Or watch it on YouTube, I mean.
Right, but
Hey,
there's a half hour difference between the two. Did you know that?
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
This
That's
is for
so-
testing for Zoom.
People that are going to check into the meeting can check in at 7. If you're just going to
oh, but
watch
the
the
meeting
meeting.
doesn't start till 7:30 officially. Ah, got it. Okay.
Hey,
Look,
Jim.
there's
Welcome.
Daryl.
Yeah. Hello, Daryl.
There's Daryl's hand.
Oh, Daryl. Hello. Hello, Daryl.
Does he have a signal?
Well, he's got video, but no audio.
Well, that's normal for him.
That's right. He's a video guy. He's a TV guy.
That's right. You can't hear him on the 2 meters.
Hello.
Hey, Jim, how you doing? SXB?
Good. How are you? You're looking wonderful.
Oh, there's audio from him. Hi, Daryl.
Can you hear it all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Why is James on the floor?
Position. Hey.
Did you
He's-
fall down, Jim?
He's muted.
Oh, he's muted. No wonder I can't hear him.
Man down, man down.
There
Oh,
we
he's just
go.
he's
The
laying
floor
on the
has
wall.
also got his pictures hanging on it.
So there's some audio. There's your audio. Unmute
Yeah.
bottom left.
Okay, Daryl
Levi,
and Jen both have audio.
Levi, I was looking, doing some more Googling here, and on some NASA page, it says the reusable Falcon 9 first stage will then begin its automated boost back burn to the launch site for a
Oh, it's going to
propulsive
come back to the
landing.
launch site. Interesting.
Tomorrow.
That's, yeah, it's what the Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich, latest in series spacecraft, blah, 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 blah. And there's, I mean, it says it's going to come back.
To the launch
All
site.
right.
So,
All right. That's the
I don't
first
know.
I've heard of
That
that.
could be-
Everything else I've seen has said it goes to a drone ship, but maybe so.
well, yeah, I don't know. I was just doing some more Googling, and that's what I found. So who knows?
Yeah,
That's
maybe
pretty
getting more
confident.
confident.
I don't know if I'm gonna
Yeah.
get up early to. I don't know if I'm gonna get up
W1CSB.
early enough to go do it. But
Early? That's like nap time.
Oh, day's half over with.
I think that they also
and
have
then on Saturday.
they also have an Amazon contract, and they're going to be delivering packages on the way back to the launch
Oh,
site.
oh, that's good. They can drop
Yeah,
them off on the island as they go by.
Yeah. Who's W1CSB, was it? Huh. He just left.
I got just this thing.
Oh, there he is. He's back. W1CSB.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. That's what I found.
Hey, Chris. Hi there, whoever you are.
Hey, Dorothy.
She's in a graveyard.
Is she dead?
Hey, Orville.
Low audio.
Hey,
How you doing, Orville?
he's muted.
Can you hear me?
You're on your
Getting
iPhone,
some
bottom
lights
left.
and everything on.
Unmute bottom left on your iPhone anyway. I don't know where it is on the Android. You tell him.
I hear a dog, but I don't see a dog.
I don't either, Daryl.
We be able to see this on this screen, the program, or we have to go over to the website?
Nope, you'll
No,
see it
you-
on the screen, Daryl.
Right here.
Right here?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Hey, there's Joe. How about that? DXW, good evening. And Glenn joined.
Which graveyard are you in, Dorothy?
I'm in Kingston, New York.
New York.
Mhm.
Very good.
Where my
Looks pretty green there, isn't it?
where my third and fourth great grandparents are buried.
Wow.
Beautiful
Oh,
picture.
must be a picture. Okay.
In fact, the headstone is right. Whoops. That's their headstone right there.
That's a claw.
Hmm.
Mr. Benson.
Okay.
Yep.
Let's see.
Okay. Roger, Eric.
I know, it's very sad, I think. I mean, if you saw this conflict, you wanted to be yesterday, oh my God. Oh my God. It was just.
Who else is not there tonight?
Well, we went on about how.
Somebody's in the kitchen talking.
You are gone again.
Big ballots.
This evening in about 15 seconds starting. Visit sbarc.org for information about how to join us on Zoom or YouTube. sbarc.org for links to YouTube and Zoom to join us for the November general meeting. We'll be presenting this evening about HF radio and tracking airliners on Transpacific voyages, as well as our annual elections. Hope to see you there. K6 LCM.
That's pretty good. The delay is a fraction of a second.
Yeah, Levi muted himself, but I put him back on.
I did too.
I turned up the radio. Well, let's see. We've got 26 people in the Zoom meeting and 7 watching on YouTube.
Alexa, what time is it?
So let's get started here.
Brian, we have to have a quorum.
Well, he's completely wacko.
We have to have a what?
A quorum of members. This is a general meeting, annual meeting.
Yeah.
So we just need to announce what the quorum was. So we need to know how many members attended and how many members are there. So we can determine the
Bylaws.
Is Tom here?
No.
There's 27 members. It's got to be 10% in the bylaws. So
We
we have
have-
10 people. So we got a quorum.
Dorothy, I just said we had 27 participants and now we have 9 watching on YouTube.
Okay.
And his translator.
And a quorum is 10% of the whole membership. So
We have
So-
36.
we have a quorum.
Well, how many are members?
Yeah, how many members do we have?
I would suspect most of us. No, raise your hand.
Raise your hand. That's 4,
I'm a member.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One more, 10. There you go.
How many members in the club do we have?
I think 127, is it?
No, it's like 100, 150 something.
Okay, so we need 15 people.
All right, we have a quorum.
Wait a minute. That sounds awful lot like national politics to me.
Yeah, we have
No recounts.
Yeah, let's proceed here. Okay, as is our tradition here, we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thanks everybody for coming, and here we go. Let me get my special. There we are.
Flag.
Inverted.
The flag is backwards.
Your flag
Backwards.
is inverted.
Well, turn it upside down, it'll be better.
The nation needs help. The nation needs help.
All right. I pledge allegiance
Brian,
To
your
the
flag is
flag
backwards.
of the United States of America,
America and to the
Republic which stands
One nation,
Oh, whoa.
indivisible,
And liberty and
justice
justice
for all. Amen.
back to
Play
school.
ball.
Here we are. Okay, let's see. Let's introduce ourselves here. I'm Brian, K6BPM. I'm going to go around this based on what I see here on my screen. Might be different on your screen, but let's start with Les Benson.
W6CGE, Les Benson, and hello.
Doc.
I'm Doc, W6CW. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Doc.
What's up, Doc?
Levi.
Levi, K6 LCM on the Mesa in Santa Barbara.
Alan.
I'm Alan, AA60W from San Ynez.
CBB.
Good evening, KC6CBB, Mike in Oxnard.
Wayne.
Wayne, AF6GX.
Eric.
Eric, KG6WXC, down here in Port Hueneme.
The elf on the shelf.
Michael.
Michael. Is he live?
I think he went back into his statue doll state.
Who
Michael.
are you talking? Who are you talking to?
Elf on the shelf.
One of the kids touched him.
Yeah, one of the kids touched him, turned him to plastic.
MST, right?
W0JFB.
Hi, Mike, W0JFB. I'm your local Santa. I'm in Monterey Pines. Welcome.
Mark. Yeah, we can't hear you, Mark.
Oh, there's
No?
Tom.
Yes? No?
there's Ken.
Now we hear you.
How about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, 87 GLO, Montecito.
Let's see. John, JPG.
John, Whiskey 6 Juliet Papa Golf down in Ventura.
John, AJJ.
John, WB1AJJ, currently in Durham, North Carolina.
Hey,
Orville. You're muted, Orville.
Here we go. Hey, this is Orville, NE6J. I'm in Ventura right now.
Thanks. Daryl.
Who?
Daryl.
DI. DI.
DI. Daryl, KF6BI, East Mountain Drive, Montecito.
Chris.
Chris, W1CSP. I'm in San Francisco Bay Area. I went to high school with Levi, and he invited me to the meeting tonight to hear his presentation.
Oh, welcome.
Okay, Joe.
Joe, K6DX Willie in Nolita.
Okay, Glenn.
Hello, this is Kilo November 6th, Hotel Juliet Whiskey in Buellton. Good evening, guys.
All right, Jim, Arizona.
N6SXB in bed in Arizona.
Do you always sleep on the floor, Jim?
He's sleeping on the
wood paneling.
Only when I'm drunk.
All right, Rick.
This is KG6 VLB, not where it looks like.
Larry.
WA6 MVJ in beautiful downtown Nolita.
Debbie.
This is Kilo November 6, India Mike Juliet in Buellton.
Michael, RQV.
Good evening, everybody. Michael here in Goleta, K6RQV, and Levi. I couldn't get any information on the SFO transatlantic stuff because all my phone numbers are at work, and I'm on vacation this week. And I thought about going into work to get them. And I thought, no, Levi can handle this. So
No worries. Yeah, I might have a couple questions for you. I'm sure you can answer during the
oh
presentation.
God, no pressure.
No pressure. Yeah.
Dorothy.
This is Dorothy, Kilo 6, Delta Sierra Oscar in Upper State Street, Santa Barbara.
Ooh, upper.
Way up.
Dorothy, you're near me, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm way past you.
All right.
I'm at
Five.
4,000 block of State Street.
Yeah,
5
you're
points.
way past me.
Which is that's the classy neighborhood, right there.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
5 points.
Dave, AI6VX, Dave.
It's Dave, Alpha India 6 Victor X-ray, Ventura East End.
Mhm.
Okay, Bob. You're muted, Bob.
Yeah, sorry about that.
There we go.
KA6VRC in Goleta.
Okay, let's see. Stephen.
Bob.
Oh, wait. Go ahead, Stephen.
Hello all, Whiskey 6 Sierra Tango Papa here coming to you tonight from Dallas, flying home to Mission Canyon tomorrow.
Welcome.
Tom. You're muted, Tom.
Muted.
All right, this is Tom, N6YX in Goleta.
Okay, Ken.
KA6KEN in the hole called Winchester Canyon, the very northwest corner of the city of Goleta.
Let's see. Dennis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dennis, WB6 Oscar, Bravo, OBB. And it looks like no Christmas party this year. I even forgot to ask you about it, Brian, but I'm sure we can't do it now.
Dennis, I'm going to mention something about that here in a minute.
Okay. Let me know.
Richard.
Let me get my notepad.
Richard? No, Richard. Bruce?
It's me.
Okay. Oh, she got excited. What's going on?
Marina?
ID Marina.
You're muted, Marina.
Sorry. Hello.
There you go.
That's weird because normally I come in unmuted, but good to see you guys.
Okay, Richard said he's from Santa Barbara, WA6IZH. Okay, thank you, Richard. Bruce.
Ooh, Daddy.
Okay.
Somebody else has joined.
John K. Now, these are ones with no picture here. Everett Littman.
Are you muted?
Okay, well, yeah, they're all muted. I don't even know if there's no picture, Dennis. There's a live person.
Okay.
Anyway, I think did I miss anybody?
No, but that's a lot of members, 50 people. That's a good showing.
That's 34 plus 9, so we got 43. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, let's
Close
couple
enough.
of announcements. The club station, we've been having it open here for several months after the lockdown stuff here, and because the cases are climbing back up again, the club station will still be open, but we're going to try and discourage a lot of people from hanging out there all morning because it's been getting pretty crowded and there's not a lot of room in there.
No donuts
So
anymore.
we'll be open for business, and if you want to swing by and say hello or something like that, but I really want to try and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to keep a safe distance from each other when they're in the club station. So I'm only going to put out so many chairs. So if their chairs are full, we're probably at capacity. But I mean, you guys are free to kind of group in the parking lot or around a car or whatever you want to do. I don't want to discourage people from coming down, but I just want to make sure that everybody inside the shack is able to maintain a good distance from each other. So, but we'll still be there. I'll be there in the morning, regular time, and be there till noon at least. So anyway, everything will be. We'll just try and be safe about it. This is our last meeting of the year. We won't be having any board meetings or any general meeting in December. We never do. So that brings me to the next thing. We won't be able to really have a club Christmas party like we have in the past. We've had them at Rusty's, and it's literally elbow to elbow in there when we have a Christmas party. And I don't think that's just going to happen this year. But I thought what I would do would be to set up a Zoom open house. We'll pick a Saturday, maybe the Saturday before Christmas or something, and we'll just start a Zoom meeting. I'll set it up in the main part of the shack down there, and people can come and check in. People can come by, whatever, and visit for a while. And we'll get Daryl to bring a Christmas tree.
Yeah. He loves it.
But we'll, it won't be anything formal. You don't have to bring food or anything. Maybe we'll have something down there. But if you guys we'll just set up a computer, turn on the Zoom meeting. You'll be able to see what's going on. Stop by and say hello. Anyway, so I think probably, let me see what my calendar looks like here. The Saturday before Christmas would be December 19th, which our normal meeting would be on the 18th anyway. So the 19th. So we'll do it in the morning so that we don't take up the whole afternoon if people have to go out and do things. And so I think at 9, like between 9 and noon, or maybe 9 and 1 or something like that, we'll just have a continuous Zoom meeting going on. And you're free to stop in and wish your friends and club members a Merry Christmas.
Comment.
Yeah.
Do you want Santa to appear in Zoom?
Why not?
I don't see why not.
How many people have children? I'm serious. I mean, if there's people out here in the community that have children, I'm open to a Zoom connection for those children, and I can give Brian some coins, Santa coins, to give to them if they come to the club station. But I need a commitment and also need a time and date.
I don't think we'll be having any kids come down to the club station.
No, I can give them to the parents. They can give them to the kids who
Yeah.
can attend the Zoom meeting at home at the same time.
Okay, that's going to be kind of hard to organize. So let's anyway, let's kind of tentatively plan on the 19th, and we'll see. I don't know how many members have younger kids.
Hello.
There's a few of them. I don't know. My oldest is 50, so you know, I don't know if he's going to want to come. But
The question should be, does he still believe in Santa Claus?
well, I think he does. I think he thinks it's me.
My daughter, who's almost 40, believed in Santa until she was 13. I made it real. But this year and next year, or last year, was really epic. I mean, I had really a couple miracles, but the thing is, folks, this is a trying time. So if anything I can do to help, I'm there for you.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Okay, so anyway, so I think what we'll do is we'll send out something by email to remind you and give you a Zoom address meeting or a Zoom meeting address, and we'll just see what happens. It'll at least be a way to stay in touch. We won't be doing any gag gift exchanges or anything like that, so there's no pressure on you for that. Just show up and say hello. Bring your own refreshments.
I have a comment, Brian.
Yeah, Doc.
In terms of the meeting, the Saturday meetings that happen from now on, or at least tomorrow, my suggestion would be please ask the members not to bring donuts. Nobody should be eating anything in close quarters with other people and taking their masks off to eat, putting them back on. In addition to the mask being off part of the time, handling the mask renders the use of the mask pretty much useless. If you handle it with your hands, and you're contaminating your hands, and then on the outside, and then you rub your eye or whatever, scratch your nose. So my suggestion would be, at least for tomorrow, try and having no edibles at the Saturday meeting. It'll increase the safety margin by quite a lot.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
People can just drop the donuts off at my house if they want that.
I'm not buying that.
The old ones that are there should have some kind of antibodies on them, right?
Yeah. You eat one
penicillin.
of those, it'll kill whatever you got. So,
And yourself too.
all right, let's see. Let's move on to the election here. Of course, a lot of you, and I really appreciate you giving the online voting a try. I know there wasn't a big, there wasn't any, it wasn't contested, so there wasn't a lot of, not much to do there except to agree with the slate that was presented. But nevertheless, we gave it a good try for a electronic election. I think we did a lot better than most states did. We didn't have to do any recounts. We were able to certify the vote quickly, and you know, there's so far as I know, there's no pending litigation over the election either.
There you go.
So anyway,
Wait till tomorrow.
our club secretary Dorothy tallied up all the votes. Dorothy, do you want to give us the results? Go. Oh, I guess not.
You haven't heard from my lawyers yet?
I'm here. Give me a chance, will you? Well, what did I tell you, Brian? 34 votes were sent in by email to me directly. And they all voted for the slate. And I think Tom received 2 by post box mail. So that makes for 36 votes total, or 36 members total voted for the total slate. So they were all elected.
Congratulations.
Well, for those of you that don't know who we all are, let me introduce everybody. I'm Brian, K6BPM. I'm the president, past president for the past 5 years, and now for a 6th year. The chief financial officer is Tom Saunders. Can you wave, Tom?
Hi, guys.
Tom.
Yeah, I'm the one that takes your money. Most
I'm the
important
one that
job.
spends your money.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll give some of it to the club too, so.
Okay, the club secretary is Dorothy Oxner. Dorothy,
Yay.
say hello.
Hey, Dorothy.
Thank you.
All right, and new to the board this year is Dave Schmidt, AI6VX.
Wow.
Director at large. He's taking, Rick decided not to run this year. And so Dave stepped up, and he will be new director this year. So Dave, we'll give you your list of duties later.
All of them.
I know weed whacking's one of them. I'll try and make the next one.
Well, I will say this, Dave is remarkably talented setting up ubiquity stations, because he did mine at my house, and I'm in my office in my guest room. It works great, and I'm getting great speed. Dave, thank you so much.
So Dave, tradition is every other board member takes one duty that they really don't like and they give it to the new guy.
Sorry, they take what?
That's not.
They take
Yeah.
one of their duties that they really don't like and they give it to the new guy.
I can't wait for the list then.
Okay, let's see who else here. We've got Wayne will be returning as a director.
Yeah,
Wayne,
baby.
F6GX.
Hello, folks.
There he is. Levi, also returning as a director, K6LCM.
All right, Levi.
He's also going to do a presentation for us tonight. And Michael, K6RQV. Say hello, Michael.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, Michael.
We've had it pretty easy this year. We have not.
Yeah, it's definitely a slack.
Yeah, a couple of, we got in, what, 2 meetings in person, and the rest of them have been Zoom meetings, I think. So we don't even have to go out. Anyway, all right, well, that's the new board of directors. I hope this next year's better than this one. Can't get any worse. All right.
What do you mean by that?
I could, but you don't want it.
Yeah.
Can somebody tell me how many years is it since 2020 started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Okay. Well, tonight, K6LCM Levi is going to do a presentation for us about let me get the actual wording here. We're tracking Trans-Pacific Airliners. And I didn't even know this. We were talking about this on the digital net the other night. And, you know, Levi he's a pilot, and he has a particular interest in aviation, and as well as several other people in the club. And he also has created a real cool airplane tracker, aircraft tracking system, which we're going to have, we're going to actually move it from his house down to the club station tomorrow. And it will be available for people to look at. But it's unlike things like FlightAware and things like that. This is real time It has a lot of oh, there you go. You can see everything in our area. You even see military aircraft that you might not see on FlightAware. And it is a very cool website. And every time there's some kind of an emergency going on, or I actually used it during the when the plane took off early on a Sunday morning and crashed right off of the right off the runway in Goleta, and the woman was killed. And between that and AIS, I was watching the aircraft and the helicopters responding, and the Coast Guard. And at some point, we're going to try and integrate aircraft and ship maps all at the same time. So you'll be able to go to a website, one of our websites, and you'll be able to watch all the emergency assets being brought to bear on various emergencies that we have that involve aircraft and ships. So anyway, he's done a lot of work on this, and also with the help of Ludo K6LUD. It's a very cool system, so we're going to beef it up and get it so that it's capable of handling much more traffic. So anyway, I'm going. Mike, did you have Santa Claus? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that it's from our Santinez Peak AIS system, the tracker. That is a very interesting system, and it's very accurate.
Yeah, there's actually several of them. But Levi, I think, can explain that better. Also, I think we're even linked in to somebody in San Diego and can see down in Mexico now, right, Levi?
Right. Yeah, we're linked in down there.
You
as
made
well.
like a new tracking page, Levi?
Say again?
You made like a new tracking page? Like it's
no,
not the same old.
It's earthspot.net. It's the same one you've seen, I think. Does it just look
okay?
different?
I thought you like wrote a whole new.
No, we want
to tracking thing.
No,
and
I'll
all
talk
this
a little
crap.
bit
Okay,
about it,
so-
but there is some software out there that allows you to merge multiple systems together. And so the idea is going forward, we could have the separate pages and then also overlay ships and aircraft onto one map, so you could kind of see the whole thing, especially for like a disaster or at sea thing, like the fire that we had or the plane crash or things like that. So.
Okay, just having built this a bunch of those pages, I was like, what?
Yeah, well, we're going to be calling on you, Eric.
All right.
Yeah, we're
that's
going to be
fine,
calling
yeah.
on you to help with that.
That's okay. All righty.
Set up now.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I should just keep my mouth shut. Huh?
Yep. We have high-speed broadband now in the shack, and I'm putting in a legitimate commercial-style Xeon-powered server in there tomorrow.
Nice.
So,
all righty. That'll be good.
Some fun things. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Levi, let him get started with his presentation here. And thank you everybody for attending. And I think you're going to enjoy this. Levi, take it away.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Let me see. You guys can see my screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So I've got a 20-minute presentation here. I'm going to ask you to hold your questions until the end, and then I'll have a Q&A time to try to fill in any blanks, but I'm going to go through, and sometimes I might gloss over something and then return to it later, including the specific frequencies and whatnot that I reference. This presentation in its entirety will be available online at sbarc.org, so you can go back there and reference it if you have any questions about any of the material, including the links that are in here. All the URLs that I show on screen are going to be clickable links in the PDF. So
you might want to unmute everybody so there's no noise in the background.
Oh, thanks, Dennis. Yeah.
We do that all the time on a lot of our Zoom calls.
Are you able to do that, Brian?
Yes. Let's see here. Okay, wait, okay, here. Yeah, I'll unmute everybody. Okay. I think it's just you and me, Levi.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I think, as I mentioned this to a couple people, even hams were surprised that there were other people using the HF bands other than ham radio operators. Shortwave broadcasters around the world are closing up shop. You might think that military users and hams are the only ones on the high frequency bands, along with maybe some Cold War spies who are listening for some numbers stations. But airliners that make oceanic crossings are relying on HF bands every day, relying on communication over skywave, and use very many of the frequencies that are similar and adjacent to the ham bands, all the way from 80 meters up through frequencies that are close to 15 meters. Depending on propagation, they get assigned to different frequencies. So what I'd want to go through today is talk a little bit about that communication system, and we'll track an aircraft that's leaving from Los Angeles and headed to Sydney, Australia. The system that they use is something called AirInc. So you all know what ATC is, air traffic control, and aircraft that are traveling over the continent are speaking in contact usually with air traffic controllers most, if not all, of their flight. But as you head out over the ocean, obviously, once you get out of sight of land, line of sight communications no longer work. So Collins Aerospace, which is now a part of Raytheon Technologies, but since 1929 has been providing aviation services to the FAA for HF and VHF voice as part of AirInc. And surprisingly, you think with satellite technology and digital networks that we might have migrated our primary communications over to those networks, but the primary means of air-to-ground communication during oceanic flight remains AirInc and the HF frequencies. They've got two stations. One is in Livermore, California, and the other is in Islip, New York, so Atlantic and Pacific Ocean. And I'll just quickly go through what the anatomy of a Transpacific flight looks like. So an aircraft that's departing from Los Angeles is going to initially make contact with Los Angeles ground, tower, and then Southern California Terminal Radar Approach Control, or we call TRACON, and then Los Angeles Center, which is abbreviated ZLA. So those are the typical elements of an aircraft departure. And don't look any different from an aircraft that's heading to New York versus one that's heading to Sydney. Where it starts to get interesting is when they switch over to San Francisco AirInc. And that frequency is 131.95, 131.950 megahertz, but it's AM. And I'll talk a little bit more about how you can receive those frequencies if you don't know how to do that already. There's a few different options. But if you're interested in hearing airband frequencies on VHF, it's quite easy to do with existing ham equipment oftentimes, or even with a smartphone. San Francisco AirInc will give them high frequency communications frequencies, channelized frequencies, using coastal sites for communication. And typically those frequencies tend to be 5 and 8 megahertz when you're listening during the afternoon and evening hours. And we'll hear what some of those sound like. They also do a cell call test. Cell call stands for selective calling. Us hams, we're used to listening to all the static and the noise, and kind of may even get some enjoyment from pulling weak signals out of the noise floor. But pilots have a lot of other work to do, and they don't necessarily want to listen to unsquelched audio from upper sideband. So cell call is actually a tone system similar to a fire department paging that allows the AirInc operator to send some tones to the aircraft, and that would allow them to open their squelch, and then they can page that particular aircraft. So each aircraft's assigned a discrete cell call code, and then they can open the squelch and then say, American 9711, this is San Francisco AirInc, and then they don't have to hear all of the other calls and the static and whatnot. So it's just a matter of convenience. So little slides here got out of order. What we're going to do is listen in on American 9711. This is a flight from earlier this week. They departed Los Angeles at just after 10 p.m., headed for Sydney, Australia. It's a 14-hour flight. nearly 15 hours long, 14 hours, 24 minutes. And most of the time spent out of water outside of VHF line of sight contact. So they have these HF frequencies to contact and then contact AirInc and then report their position over the water. Of course, as they get inside of Hawaii, there's ground stations there that they could contact on VHF. And they typically tend to go within a few hundred miles of Hawaii for this particular route that American takes on. I believe it's a nightly flight. Yes, there are SAT systems out there and there's data systems, but HF is still that primary means of communication for those reporting points. And they must check in on HF. Every oceanic aircraft must have high frequency radios for their Transpacific crossings and transatlantic crossings. So we're going to listen in. American 9711 Heavy is the call sign. If you've ever listened to ATC communications before, you might have heard that heavy. It just means a maximum takeoff weight of 136 tons or greater. And it's to alert ATC to a large aircraft as well as other aircraft in the area might be concerned with wake turbulence, which is similar to a wake from a large ship on the ocean. So it's just to let people know it's a big boy. So let me switch over to the let's see, how do I do this? Switch over to the video. Okay. All right, so this is a screen capture from our earthspot.net system that Brian introduced a few minutes ago. If you've ever used an aircraft tracking site like FlightAware to find out when your relatives are arriving at an airport or just see what the status is, whether an aircraft is late, you've probably seen the moving map on there. It's gotten better, but oftentimes the moving map, because of the way the system functions and their agreements with the FAA for some vestigial national security reasons, it can be delayed. It's basically a policy holdover. There are now sites, and obviously we can receive these aircraft position from a system called ADSB, which is similar to APRS for hams, which is a GPS on the aircraft. It gets the position of the aircraft and then it sends out that position over the network, over the air, which is then ingested by network receivers and then puts the position on the map. So prior to ADSB, all aircraft tracking was done by air traffic control with radar. And of course, you've seen movies with the radar sweep in the radar room and the controllers are looking at it. Now radar is augmented with this self-reporting system, this broadcast of ADSB from aircraft. The cool thing about ADSB is anyone can receive it, and the Radio Club and now our sister organization, Santa Barbara Wireless Foundation, which does all these sort of ancillary, non-ham related data gathering things from our repeater sites around the region, allows us to, from Santa Ynez Peak, from Diablo Peak on Santa Cruz Island, and we have some hams down in San Diego and Ventura counties that are also feeding our system. It allows us to see aircraft oftentimes from the ground all the way up to several hundred miles to sometimes even more than that offshore as they make their transoceanic crossings. So I'm going to play for you some audio that was recorded from the VHF and HF bands, and we're going to track live or recorded live this aircraft 9711, American 9711, as it departs Los Angeles and heads out over the ocean and makes its routine radio calls from VHF and transitions over to upper sideband on HF. And I've sped this up. This took me about an hour, 45 minutes to capture. I've sped it up to about 3 minutes, and I'll periodically stop and try to explain what's happening in the present in the radio.
American 9711 Heavy, wind 070 at 6, RNAV Docker, runway 25 right, clear for takeoff. RNAV Docker 25 right, cleared for takeoff. American 9711 Heavy.
So that was Tower basically giving them their departure instructions. RNAV DACA is some sort of departure instruction that you could look up, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But that's their basic clearance to depart from Los Angeles.
American 9711 Heavy, contact SOTA departure. Good night, y'all. Good night, American 9711 Heavy.
So you can see them there just above the seal, 9711 Heavy. They've departed. They're showing up on our map. And that was LA Tower. So actually in the tower cab on the at LAX, handing them off to the radar room. So instead of talking to someone who's looking at them on binoculars, now they're talking to someone who's looking at them on the screen called LA Departure. That's in the TRACON facility, Terminal Radar Approach Control Facility. So they're looking at a screen similar to this, a little bit different with the data, but basically, a map with aircraft moving on it.
And SoCal, America 9711 Heavy, 1.8, climbing via Summer 2, except maintain 5,000.
So 1.8 just means 1,800 feet and climbing via this Summer 2 departure procedure, which is a route that they fly, which looks like basically straight out from Los Angeles out over the bay.
American 9711 Heavy, SoCal departure, low radar contact, climb via SID, top altitude flight level 230.
They say climb via the SID, the SID, Standard Instrument Departure, except they gave them a top altitude to climb to.
Climb via SID, top altitude, flight level 230, and request high-speed climb, American 9711 Heavy.
American 9711 Heavy, approved as requested.
Approved as request, American 9711 Heavy, thanks.
So here's a little speed up. Originally, I was going to track this Delta Airlines 41 right behind them, but they took forever to contact AirInc. So I ended up using American 9711 instead. They're both going to Sydney, Australia. They're both following almost exactly the same route. And it's interesting that the competing airlines have these departure windows that they seem to all crowd around. Like all the flights to Sydney are leaving at exactly the same time or within 5 minutes of each other. And I think it has to do with connections and arrival times and just between traveler preference and lining up with other aircraft schedule. So that's my best guess anyway. I don't know exactly why they all fumble to get in line to go to Sydney all at the same time, but they do.
And Oakland, American 9711 on 131.95, looking for the freaks this evening.
So he called it Oakland. It's actually San Francisco. He corrects himself in a second here. 131.95 is that AirInc that I talked about. So prior to this transmission, he was talking to air traffic control. Now he's talking to AirInc, which is that Collins private contract frequency where he's going to get assigned his oceanic HF frequencies. And I should have mentioned this a little bit earlier. The reason that this really got interesting to me was that when you listen to the HF transmissions, they're not even 200 miles offshore from Santa Barbara here, and depending on propagation, they become like beacons, single sideband beacons for you, so you can tell what's going on. Say if they get assigned to 8 megahertz, you can kind of say, well, that's similar to 40 meters on the ham bands. And if I can hear this aircraft that's 100 miles away or 1,000 miles away on 8 megahertz, then that means 40-meter voice is probably open as well. So they become these moving target beacon network for you to tune around and see, well, how's propagation doing on the band? So we'll see what frequencies San Francisco AirInc assigns American 9711 Heavy here.
Sorry, San Francisco.
This is San Francisco AirInc. Please stand by for the next available radio operator.
I was so glad I got that. You get a hold message if they're busy. Interesting.
Yes, San Francisco, it's American. Delta 41, clear at 131. Delta 41. This evening. Copy.
So it's a little muffled to hear him, but bear with him. It does get better, and he repeats everything that the AirInc operator says.
Primary will be 5574, secondary 34013. And crossing 15 knots, 15 knots, primary 5643, secondary 8867. Got it. Okay, 5574 on the primary. I missed the secondary, but at 15 north it'll be 5643 and 8867, so I just need the secondary now. Secondary this time 3413, correct? 3413, good night.
So 8 megahertz or 5 megahertz and 3 megahertz, and we'll hear him make his initial call here to San Francisco AirInc on 5574 kilohertz, USB upper sideband.
San Francisco, American 9711 on 5574. American 9711, San Francisco, continue this frequency, primary, secondary, 341 tree, and crossing 20 north, primary frequency, 564 tree, secondary, 8867, here's the cell phone.
Sounds like he's got YouTube on in the background creating a feedback loop. So he gave him a couple frequencies there. On the next screen, I'll show you a map, but he's talking about as you cross lines, as you cross different latitude and longitude lines, you're going to be using a different frequency. So he says after crossing such and such, he gives him a different frequency. That's something that he makes note of, and then we'll handle further on in the flight. It's probably not for a few hours down the line. So this is just negotiating those frequencies, making sure they've established contact. You'll hear him say this frequency primary, secondary, and he confirms that secondary 3 megahertz frequency. You start to get to understand the language of the exchange. Similar to a contest exchange with hams, they kind of have a routine. They say a lot of the same things. As I started listening to it and hearing more of it, I was like, some of this could just be a recording. It's almost like an answering machine. They're saying the same thing to every aircraft. If you wait for Delta 41 just in trail of American 9711, you'll hear almost an identical exchange of information. There's the cell call tones. They're testing the cell call now.
And good set, American 9711 is 3413 on the secondary now. And verify 20 north, 5643 and 8867, is that correct? That is affirmative, sir. Thank you.
American 9711 Heavy, contact LA Center 119.05.
American 9711 Heavy, good night.
So that's his last contact with SoCal Tracon, and he does check in one more time with LA Center, and then he's out of contact with the shore, and he's on HF for, well, the better part of 14 hours until he is within range of Sydney on VHF, and then he'll make an initial call up and do the whole thing in reverse with the approach controllers in Australia. Let me switch over back to the slides here. Okay, this is that chart I was showing you there, and obviously that's the route of the flight underneath, and then we lay this chart over the top here, and it shows you the different quadrants that the aircraft travel through. And again, I'm going to put this all online so you'll be able to download it and examine it more closely if you're interested in making note of these frequencies, so don't scramble to write them down. You can see that there are those lines of latitude and longitude. As they cross them, they'll be assigned a different frequency or a different pair of frequencies depending on time of day and propagation in the different boxes until they make their way down to Australia. And all these are operated by stations on the coast. And I'll talk a little bit more about how they likely do that, and maybe RQV can answer some questions if he knows how this works. But of particular note is that here in Santa Barbara is where one of those stations are. So I mentioned 131.95, I think was that, 131.95 AM is where they make that initial call up from. And you can hear that on VHF because the transmitter that they're talking on and the radio site is in Santa Barbara. It's west of LA, so it makes sense not to put it in LA, even though the flights are departing from Los Angeles, because Santa Barbara is west, so it's going to be closer as they make those initial call in. And there's another site up in San Francisco Bay Area for departures from San Francisco International and Oakland as well. Note that all the frequencies are USB. They don't follow the ham radio tradition of lower sideband on frequencies 40 meters and down. It's all upper sideband. And I believe the aircraft radios are locked on upper sideband, so I don't think they can go on lower. At least the ones I've seen didn't seem to have that. Again, radio site in Santa Barbara, cell call on HF and VHF. They kind of label all of the different things that happen here. And this racetrack looking thing is likely coverage that you'll see of VHF. That's their VHF radio horizon, or their expectation of how far out they'd be able to use it. So here are some more resources if you're interested in listening into some of this stuff on your own. I used the site FlightAware, flightaware.com, and you get the top of the screen, you can search for an airport. I just put in KLAX, which is the international code for Los Angeles International Airport. Most of the US, I think you can use the 3-letter code as well. You could just type in LAX. And then I go to the departures section and look and see what's departed. And then they have scheduled departures after that. If there's not enough shown there, or you don't see any international departures, you can always click more and go to a secondary screen. And I'm just looking for something typically that's departing around the time I want to listen. I found just this week in looking at the schedules that many of the departures to Down Under, which is where you want to make sure that some of the flights that are going to East Asian countries are taking a polar or a Great Circle route going up by Alaska. And so you won't necessarily hear them check in the same way. So I'm looking for ones that are going south. I want to hear aircraft that are headed to Australia, New Zealand. So I'm looking for those departures on the screen here. And then once you find the departure, you just wait for them to depart and look for them on the earthspot.net website and wait till they check in. Now, how you're going to listen. For VHF, for 131.95, and if you're interested in hearing just the domestic departures out of Santa Barbara, you can likely use your VHF ham radio. Many, or I don't know, most ham radios will tune the airband and they'll go down there. Now, I've heard a couple people ask me on a couple of the nets. They said, well, I don't think mine does that. What did you do? Sometimes you have to enable wide RX coverage, wide receive coverage on particularly Yaesu radios come where it's an option, but it just needs to be unlocked. And that can be done in the configuration screen. Just change the coverage to wide and it'll automatically let you go down lower than the ham bands and you can receive on AM. And then if you're looking for frequencies, this website skyvector.com will have frequencies for different airports. You can just type in the airport code again and you'll get a list of all the frequencies down here. You'll get the charts, which also have frequencies printed on them. So that can be a helpful place to stop as well. Now, if you don't have a VHF radio or you want to hear radio traffic from an airport that's outside of your radio horizon, then liveatc.net has a network of feeders that are basically just scanners, virtual scanners feeding their network and streaming it online, similar to the way we stream our repeaters. So a couple of those LA calls I actually didn't pick up directly. I just downloaded from the archive here at liveatc.net. They have an Android and iOS app, and they have a website that lets you do it. It's very comprehensive, and there's a ton of airports that are on there, particularly all of the big ones. And even Santa Barbara has some live streams on there. Now, when you get to the shortwave and the AirInc high frequency frequencies that you'll want to tune in, most HF and shortwave radios tune those frequencies out of the box. Just remember that it's upper sideband, not lower sideband. Your radio may default to lower sideband. And I thought, geez, there's nobody on these frequencies. Of course, it was on lower sideband because my radio defaulted to that. So if you're going to listen on your own, just remember to put your radio in upper sideband. Those frequencies for AirInc can be found on this site, radio.airinc.net/Pacific. This site also has those maps that I showed you. There's even a document for, if you really want to get into the weeds with this, the Aviation Voice Services Operating Procedures Handbook. It's written for pilots and schedulers and dispatchers at the airlines to read and understand how the system works. So all of it's public, all of it's documented. It's really, it's not secret what's happening here. Here's this map that I showed on the screen as well. So both of those documents, and these will be hot links in the PDF when I put it on the website. If you don't have an HF radio, or in the case of that night, I was not picking that American 9711 up all that well line of sight on what I guess would be considered close to 40 meters. So I decided to see, well, how well can I hear him in Utah? So I went to the web SDR in Utah, and I was able to tune the frequency there. Obviously, that's not displaying the correct frequency. I was on whatever he was assigned, 5574, and I could hear him better in Utah over the just off the Santa Barbara channel than I could here in Santa Barbara. And that just varies on propagation. I've heard them perfectly here in Santa Barbara other nights, and probably as he got further away, he'd probably come in better for me here as the distance between the, skip angle and ionosphere changed. As the night gets later, they may fade. So my guess is that the FAA probably has, or AirInc, I should say, probably has multiple transmit and receive sites for HF that are at different longitudes, different latitudes, to try to make sure that they always stay within range and within the skip range of the various aircraft. So worth checking out the web SDRs to listen to these frequencies as well. You can even make your own recordings. What you heard came from a recording right here. They'll let you download a WAV file. It's very cool. We've looked at earthspot.net. I can put it up on the screen again in a minute, but let me just show you what one of those feeders looks like. It's kind of a cool homebrew-ish project. It's off-the-shelf parts, so it's not really all that homebrew, but you stick them together and it's pretty cool how it works. This is a Raspberry Pi. This is we call it, it's an ADSB receiver, but really it's a $20 RTL SDR dongle. They're made overseas. They were intended for use in Asia for receiving TV signals off the air. They're a $20 device, and they can be repurposed not only for ADSB, but scanning and listening of frequencies from like 30 megahertz to 1 gigahertz or even higher. So we put a filter on it to filter out 1090, which is the 1 gigahertz frequency that the aircraft are using to send their position data. And that's how we feed the map. It's less than $100 in hardware, and we're able to capture the location information from the airplanes, put it on a map, and it's live. So let me pull up that. Let me pull up earthspot.net one more time. That did not work the way I wanted it to. Hold on. Yeah, here it is. So here's the live look at those aircraft. And like I said, FlightAware and some others, Flight Radar 24, you've probably heard of, that's often delayed. If you were out over Isla Vista, well, what's going on right now? A little lag here. Yeah, let's say if you were at El Cap or out by Naples, you would be seeing ExoJet 350 fly over your head at this moment. This is exactly where that aircraft is. There's no delay. We don't introduce any delay. So it's very good for tracking aircraft, particularly if there's a fire in Santa Barbara. We watch sometimes the helicopters will circle overhead of different sites where the fire is. And sometimes we'll hear conflicting information. You'll watch the news and you'll say, oh, they're done for the night. They're not going to make any more drops. And we're sitting here on earthspot.net watching them dunk into Lake Cachuma and make second or final drops. So it's really cool. And you know that what you're seeing is live. It's not delayed. So that's the reason to use earthspot.net over some of the other services that are out there. You go down to Los Angeles and you'll see it's getting busy. Now's the time where some of those departures start to tick up. And then I think they peak at around 10 p.m., those departures to Australia and New Zealand. On the little data block here, you'll see it says Diablo Peak. That means that that's the receiver that it's coming in on. So feel free to check it out. It's earthspot.net. You can see our different receive sites here. You can actually choose which site that you want to receive from. So if you want to see, again, what does 1 gigahertz propagation look like? You can choose, okay, what can I see from Santa Ynez Peak? And you'll be amazed at what the radio horizon is when the station is at 30,000 feet. And I'll pull this up so you can see just the range of how far our system goes. I mean, we're tracking them well into Mexico and up into Northern California and then way out onto the ocean. I mean, imagine Santa Ynez Peak is picking this aircraft up and they're well into international waters. I mean, I don't know how far that is, but it's a few hundred miles anyway offshore, and they're still on the screen. gonna flip back for my final couple slides here, and then I'll take questions if you guys have any. So my next challenge, what's up next? Some of you might be interested in tackling this yourselves. ACARS, which is an aircraft communication addressing and reporting system. It's a digital system similar to ADSB, but much older. It's been around for many years. What it does is allows a data, like basically a text message exchange between aircraft in flight and ground stations, usually company, like Delta can call Delta dispatch and find out what gate they're coming into or that sort of thing. It also has lots of automated reporting, like when the gear comes up, when the gear goes down, when the flaps come up, when the flaps go down, what the pressurization looks like. It's a diagnostic system. It's similar in some ways to onboard diagnostics, the OBD system on cars that reports everything, you know, the heartbeat of the car that's happening. This is a digital data downlink that allows the aircraft operator, the company, the airline, to see what's going on with their fleet live. When they're out over the ocean, when they're over the continent, they use VHF. When they're out over the ocean, they use HF. And this system allows them to track the fleet even as they're on these oceanic flights. Interestingly, when they switch to HF, obviously the bit rates and the data rates go down, but it can be demodulated by anyone. It's not encrypted. At least I don't think it is. Most of the time it's not. The modulation can be 2 PSK, 4 PSK, 8 PSK with bit rates from 300 to 1800 bits per second. And the airline operational controller, pilot data link communication, and they even send ADS messages, which are like ADSB, which report their position automatically over HF, which is kind of cool. So something to check out. There's a presentation here, or a short video here. It's 8.5 minutes long from a YouTube channel called Tech Minds, and he goes into all the details about what HFDL or high frequency data link is. Again, that link is going to be clickable if you download the PDF from the website, and you'll be able to get a quick summary of what HFDL, high frequency data link, is over ACARS. So that's the next thing. Thank you all for your attention during the presentation, and happy to answer any questions if you have any.
I have a comment that I'd like to add.
Sure, go ahead, Doc.
Well, I worked for United Airlines for 11 years at SFO, and I was so I can tell you some of what happens at the airline end when the pilot calls on AirInc with a problem.
Yeah.
If the problem is technical, if they're having a problem mechanical of some sort or technical problem, AirInc will call the engineers that are on call 24/7. And there'll be an engineer who is a seasoned specialist in their particular airplane, who pretty much knows everything off the top of his or her head, but also has all the reference books there. And if they have a problem, the engineers at the maintenance base in San Francisco, where there are 8,000 mechanics working to maintain the fleet, will do diagnostic tests and ask them for information of certain tests on board, and then run that through the diagnostic algorithms back at the base and try to come up with an answer for how to fix whatever it is that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things they do with AirInc, with this HF link. The other is that I know about is that I would get a call if they had a medical emergency on board. I would get a call from AirInc, and I'd be talking to a pilot. The AirInc would tell me the exact location of the aircraft, how close it was to the point of no return, and that sort of thing. And then I would sit and talk with the pilot, even if there was a doctor on the plane dealing with the emergency. The pilot would want my opinion about whether or not he needed to divert or return to San Francisco or go on, and he would make that decision based partly on what I said, and of course partly on his fuel, the amount of fuel and where he was and all of that, and what the facilities were where he was. But I could give him some advice about what would be needed and whether he would find it, you know, in the usual. Well, if he found it in Hawaii, he'd be fine. Anyhow, so that was what I did at my end of the AirRink phone calls. They would phone patch me to the pilot, which is, and we would just talk directly back and forth with the AirRink operator listening, so that he could throw the switches at the proper time. So that was my experience with all this, and I've talked to many airplanes in the middle of the Pacific during using this equipment. On the other hand, I had a friend who was a Pan Am pilot, a guy I met on the air one day, and we chatted for a long time, and he was in the middle of the Pacific using his beautiful Collins radio to get on the ham bands and chat to keep from being bored. And we eventually met and had dinner. Our families had dinner together and so forth and so on. Anyhow, that was back in the 70s or 80s. So it was pretty exciting to me to make a new friend in the middle of the Pacific. Thank you. That's it.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah.
Comment.
Michael.
In relation to Doc, my grandpa, who passed away this year, January, at 107 years old, worked for ATC, flew during the Aleutian Islands during World War II, had reckoning to the islands. And actually, I'm impressed with a lot of the stories that he had told me. And the one thing that impresses me, Doc, is that he was called when he worked for health. He worked in Japan. He worked as an flight inspector. And when he got that call, he got from the pilot. He actually was told that the pilot can't land because they had a plane on the ground that was locked up and they couldn't get past the landing. And my grandpa told him, it says, well, we will take care of it. And you know what he told him to do is they told the engineers to cut the tail off that doggone plane that locked up on the ground so that the planes in the air that were running out of fuel can land. And that's how much power he had. And it's impressive nowadays to see the communication aspects of what Levi was stating versus the old school communications. And I'm very grateful to know his language. And thank you.
As a flight surgeon, I was regarded by the company as being a member of the crew. Therefore, I had cockpit privileges, and when I traveled anywhere, I usually traveled in the cockpit in the observer seat directly behind the pilot. So I've been on many Transpacific flights and listened to the AirRink conversations from the pilot's end as well.
Cool. Was my description of what happens in the cockpit accurate about how they get cell call check and then they don't?
Absolutely, yeah. And we used ACARS, HF data, ACARS to talk to. It would send all the information back about the condition of the aircraft, the engine temperature, and everything else, so that if anything did go wrong, they had all that as backup data to help the engineers figure out what was going on.
It's like the original black box in the cloud. Right, they were sending all that data out to the cloud so that they could look at it live. Yeah.
You know, the one thing my grandpa could do is they would let him on the plane fly the cockpit seat, or he would fly a jump seat, and he was there for an inspection because he had some kind of notification that there was something wrong with the plane. The plane would take off, and he would lift off, and he would go up in the air and basically say to the pilot that says, "I hear something, turn around and land." Or you know, in most cases, there was nothing, but he would tell him there was something wrong. He could tell right then and there, and they would have to turn that plane around and land it. And that's what's really impressive for somebody back in them days. But the thing is, nowadays, this technology that has advanced to where it's at now, it's impressive. It's very impressive.
I have a question.
Dorothy has a question. She has her hand raised. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Yeah, if anybody wants to ask a question, raise their hand.
Yeah.
How does this compare? How does this system compare to the one that was used during the fires in locally? The one that,
So it's the same system that we were using a couple of years ago during the Thomas fire, earthspot.net. It's the same system. We've made a couple upgrades, and our plan, one of the problems we had was we had just gotten it off the ground, and then the Thomas fire happened, and then we had dozens of people try to log in, and we became a victim of our own success and crashed our own system because it was never intended for that many simultaneous users. Who knew that it'd be so interesting to look at aircraft? And all of a sudden the Thomas fire happened, and we had air tankers and air cranes and helicopters flying all over Santa Barbara, and people wanted to know where they were. Word quickly got out just beyond the ham community into the general public about this was a resource here. So our plan is to move it to the Red Cross building, and we've got high-speed internet connection there that can accommodate the additional traffic, and we'll try to upgrade the system and add more features to it. But yeah, it's the same system we started just prior to the Thomas fire, and we're trying to evolve it into the future, do more things with it, get wider coverage.
A6DXW.
I got Michael and then DXW.
Just a comment, Levi, excellent presentation. And what I like is that the channelized SSB is so well centered and so well filtered, you don't really recognize it as single sideband with the exception of the atmospheric noise that you hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that's a kudos to the technology involved.
Yeah, you don't hear that like drift.
Yeah.
They're not tuning around. They're just punching in channels, and everybody's pretty well calibrated,
Yeah,
right?
it almost sounds like AM.
Yeah, it does. It does. About that site in Santa Barbara, 13195, is that something that's part of your maintenance, or is that something AirInc controls?
It's got to be AirInc because we've got, let's see, 13195. That doesn't ring a bell as far as a RAG site frequency.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's AirInc, it's going to be in a separate building because all the ones here are specifically linked to Los Angeles Center.
Yeah, my understanding is that that's just a completely separate thing from even flight service. It's just its own, they're the contractor and they maintain the whole system.
And that would be interesting to be a technician for them because you're dealing with long haul HF except on big power levels and big antennas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the aircraft systems, from the little bit of research that I did about what's on the other end, was that the aircraft systems are typically 500-600 watts, and they have an antenna embedded inside the tail, vertically on the tail. Yeah. So,
interesting.
The 131.95 is actually on Gibraltar.
It's on Gibraltar.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
It is on Gibraltar. I was up there and saw it 2 days ago. So it's
interesting. Good to know. That we have all these spies out there in the radio world that know where everything is.
Yes.
Comment.
What DXW and then Michael. DXW.
Okay, some 60 years ago, I maintained an AirInc radio on San Ynez Peak, VHF, that gave us fairly reliable communications a little over halfway to Hawaii. It was remoted out of LAX.
Interesting. What did you use it for?
Operation.
What did you use it for?
What?
What did you use it for?
It was used for communications to aircraft flying from LAX to Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
What antenna was it, Joe?
What antenna was then?
I forget the frequency they used.
Does anybody?
Was it I was going to say, was it AirInc then, or was it part of the government?
Well, it was AirInc.
It was AirInc.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's been AirInc since the Wrights were still alive.
Oh, okay.
I guess Michael, go ahead, and then Doc.
I believe we have some newcomers in the picture here. Brian, you want to introduce? Martha King, Tom Saunders.
Let's just let Ken's got to. Let's just let Levi keep on with the questions here.
Okay.
Tom had a question though about the antenna.
Oh, Tom. Yeah. Tom, you had a question about that Joe's antenna. Is that what you said?
Yeah, Joe was mentioning to me that was a log periodic time, wasn't it, Joe? Didn't they use like a log up there?
That's what the FAA traditionally uses for HF communication is 3 to 30 megahertz log periodics.
Okay.
In
Ken?
fact, one of the technicians, when they took down the one at Los Angeles Center, one of the techs bought it, put it up at his house. And it's like a 50-foot tower with a 3 to 30 megahertz log periodic on it. So he lived out in the desert.
That's awesome. Ken, I'm sorry if I missed you earlier. Go ahead with your question.
That's right. Joe, did you have something else? I thought it looked like you doubled. Nope.
No, I don't think so.
What was I gonna, oh, just as if I sent this through the chat, but I don't know if I'm using it right. The last 10 minutes, there's been a conversation going on 5575 between the airplane and an airplane. It's loud and clear here in Santa Barbara, just FYI.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't think that's on. No, it's 5574 is what they list, but maybe they went. I don't know how they'd go up one.
I couldn't hear them on a 7.4 was all messed up, so I went up to 5. Unless my, of course, my unit might be screwed up. Maybe it's off, but
Maybe you're off. I would be willing to bet that you're off and not Air Inc. and American Airlines.
I'm using my FT1000MP, and it's dead at 5.575.00. I'm not on the old Kenwood, but who knows? Anyway, there's a conversation going on somewhere around there that's kind of neat. What was I going to ask? Any idea why they would be using cell call instead of PL tones, or
well,
more of them, or is PL newer technology, or?
I think because it's more like paging. They don't want to have a bunch of different subaudible tones. What they're trying to do is open it, so it's more like the NOAA weather radio. They want the radio to open up and then close up selectively. So they're using a burst of tones instead of a subaudible tone for the duration. That's the only reason I can think of why they're doing it, because traditionally they've done those tone bursts. So radio systems that like fire dispatch that want to alert a particular station, or the Brits use a tone burst for alert opening up repeaters as well. So I think it's older than PL. PL started as like a Motorola thing, and cell call with the audible tones existed in advance and is typically used for paging, whereas subaudibles are used typically for multiple users of the same frequency. So, I mean, yeah, it's similar and they probably could do the same thing, but my guess is that it's been around longer. And also with HF, subaudible may not work as well because the frequency is so iffy with propagation. So you'd want to open the squelch and then not worry about having to sustain that subaudible tone throughout the entire transmission in order to keep the squelch open. You just want to punch the squelch open with a tone, and then they can either manually close it after that when they're done listening. So
I forgot we were talking HF. That's a really good point.
It just opens the squelch on one plane's radio.
Yeah.
But you could do the same thing with PLs. You could have a different PL assigned to you.
Yeah, you have to have a whole batch of PLs.
Yeah, and you'd have. Yeah, you do, but you'd also have to sustain integrity of that PL on HF over a long period of time, and that might not be possible. So
True.
I kind of wish they would do it on VHF with cell call, so that you didn't have to listen to all the other traffic if you didn't want to, or at least you'd have the option as an airplane listening that you could say, all right, I'm going to put on cell call.
That was available 30 years ago, 40 years ago. It's not much used now, but that was possible 4 decades ago.
Yeah.
Tom King has had his hand up for quite some time.
Thanks, Tom. Go. Oh, you're on mute though, Tom.
Okay, Eric also has. There's 32 subaudible tones. Cell calls, there's like 15,000 with
Good
2
answer.
tones.
Yeah, there you go.
So there's the difference right there. Go ahead, Eric. You had your hand up too.
Eric, and then we'll come to Doc. I see you, Doc.
Oh, hey, I just want to say hi to Tom first, but this might be a question for later, Levi. I want to know what the heck the little evil scientist map with the green lights on it behind you is.
Oh, let me see. So actually, this is kind of related, and I'll quickly tell you what it is. This is a VFR sectional, visual flight rules map for aviators. And each one of these dots, these green dots right now, they're green, most of them, are airports, and green means that there's fair weather at the airport. In the morning, sometimes, especially in the summer when we've got coastal fog, these will all be red or sometimes pink if it's really low. If it's really low cloud cover turning into ground fog. So it just picks up the hourly observation from each of these airports and then changes the color to a color-coded scale based off of flight rules for airplanes. So there's, I don't know, 35 or 40 different airports are on here, ranging from Palm Springs in the bottom up to Monterey up in the top left over there.
Levi?
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Is that a projection?
No, it's an actual printed, foam core map, and then the LEDs are the RGB LEDs are drilled in to the foam core and then glued and mounted in place.
I think
Hey,
chicken salt needs to be on
Levi,
there.
Yes.
Levi, real quick.
Yeah.
John and I keyed up on you yesterday about the icing, or day before yesterday about the icing over to
Right.
Central California. What did you think about that?
I thought I would want to avoid icing.
Yeah,
Unless it's
well,
on a cake.
That's why I was actually focused on it when I went on AIS, and then I went, oh, snaps. And then I went on Prog chart and I looked at the icing chart on the flight plan. And I'm going, wait a minute, John, what is this signal? What is this icon in the middle of Central California? And it expressed a guy standing in the middle with his hands like a goalie. And
Yeah.
I go, and it was flight 190. And he goes, Mike, that is the most extreme icing episode. And then he keyed up on you and said, hey, Levi, don't fly nowhere.
Right. I got a question from Doc. I want to make sure I come back to. Go ahead, Doc.
Okay, hi. So I was just going to say there was one time when the flight crew was extremely impressed with ham radio. I was flying, we were flying to Hawaii. We were at 39,000 feet and we were still 250 miles from Hawaii. But we had received an AirLink call that had said be on the lookout for a sailboat that was lost and had been not been heard from. But and we were told that the sailboat had on board a 146.52 receiver, and we should try to hail them if we could. Well, they didn't know they didn't do it. They couldn't do it from the plane. I guess they could have if they figured out how. But I had a handy talkie on my belt. And I said, well, this is 5 watts, it should be line of sight straight down. So do you mind if I try? And we tried transmitting and watching all the instruments to make sure it didn't interfere with anything. And then I started calling this radio, this sailboat every few minutes. And on one of the occasions, we got a response. Some guy came back to me, and everybody in the cockpit practically broke their neck. But it turned out not to be, turning around to see this little receiver I had. But it turned out not to be the sailboat. It was a station on Hawaii, which was at that time still 250 miles away.
Wow.
And he had heard me on 5 watts.
Yeah. And you were up at 30,000 plus feet probably, right?
39, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Get a Faraday shield.
Yeah. Very cool. I don't think Marina's raising her hand, but when I scan the grid here looking for a raised hand, I keep coming to her. she's
not raising her hand. I can tell you
waving.
that.
Okay. Yeah, she's waving. Does anyone else have any other questions or comments about HF or aviation? Brian?
Yeah, I have one question. I've been listening to 131.95
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and I haven't heard anything.
It's like I said, it comes in clusters. So, you'll hear nothing for hours, and then 5 planes all check in. And so I don't know if they staff the other end at AirInc accordingly, because it seems like you could go through a whole shift and handle no aircraft, and then someone else could come on board and handle 20 of them. So I don't know why or how they do that, but don't get discouraged. You will hear something there. I don't know. I've had mine off because I was giving the presentation, but yeah, I typically start hearing stuff in rapid succession at about 2200. So I keep listening. Tom
has a question here.
Yeah. So back in the day, AirInc actually, the radio on Gibraltar used to have 2 5-element Yagis pointed west. So they're
on airband, on VHF?
on VHF on 131. So they had 2 5-element Yagis stacked, pointed west, so that they could talk further out into the ocean with from that station. And they could also switch, because they had a switch to an Omni that was also there as well. They removed the VHF. They removed the Yagis right now, and they're just using the antenna. But it's a 10 dB super station master is what it is. And then so that's kind of fascinating. And they now they used to feed it over an analog circuit. Now they put in some digital codec thing up there, so it's all brand new. But it's like a little Collins radio with a whole other tray of stuff.
Yeah, that's worth mentioning, is that the impressive nature of AirInc and FAA and Lockheed Martin, now Leidos Flight Service. These are 3 organizations that all provide air-to-ground communications with aircraft, and they're all of them fed by a network of landline telephones and voice over IP. So, you know, if you fly out of Los Angeles and you depart and you talk to SoCal TRACON, the Terminal Radar Approach Control, that person isn't in Los Angeles or even Santa Barbara, they're down in San Diego. If you get on, if you're flying up to Paso Robles, you'll be talking to a controller who's in Oakland. And when you cross the California-Oregon border, you'll be handed off to a controller who's in Seattle. So none of them are located at the site where the radio is, and they've been hauling this traffic behind the scenes, the voice around behind the scenes for years, using these elaborate networks, probably beginning with AT&T and the Bell system, and now with internet. And Michael knows more about this than I do, but it's a very interesting system to think about how all these landlines behind the radios work. Almost no one on the air traffic control and airband, other than the pilots, are sitting at a microphone attached to the transmitter that's attached to the antenna that they're talking on. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah, that's the truth. And they're even getting to the point where they had a team come out from Oklahoma City and take pictures out of the cab looking onto the airfield. And what they're going to be doing in the future is if basically they can control local from Florida if they want. All they need is a picture, past pictures plus a camera feed. And that's in the future, but it's going to be to the point where if you've got shifts that have slack time, they can actually pick up local and ground control from other airports by sending all the video of aircraft movement and all the audio. And it's supposed to be, darn near real time, very small latency, and it's on the horizon.
Yeah, I see you, Ken. I'll call you in just a sec. I read somewhere that they did a test of that system with the 360 cameras in the tower, and they did their first test flight with a plane that was actually remotely controlled from 5 states away, and they gave the ground taxi instructions and everything, and the controllers were hundreds of miles away looking through cameras and talking on radios that were completely controlled over the internet. So
yeah,
then they can outsource those jobs to people overseas probably at some point. No job is safe.
No, that's the truth.
Ken,
when's the air travel going to become virtual?
Yeah.
So question for Tom is, I'm wondering if that unit is on John Franklin's property or if they've got their own.
No, it's on John Franklin's property. It's in what we call his blockhouse.
Oh, he's in blockhouse. And then Levi, can you explain again? You mentioned why this unit happens to be in Santa Barbara, despite that it's more for. Is it just for LAX traffic? And why would it be in Santa Barbara? There's something I'm missing there.
I asked the AirInc guy that question, and I can answer that probably.
Go, Tom, because you know better than I do why.
It's the same reason why there was a radio on San Ynez Peak. It's the furthest west that you can go in California for the oceanic routes, especially the South Pacific oceanic routes. So they come out, they go right by San Ynez Peak, and then they start heading, doing the Great Circle routes. So that's why.
Oh, so that's the direction that all those planes, they're all flying over our city on their way out from LA.
No, they're flying out in front of us. They're flying out in front of us.
Yeah, let me see if I can show you that again.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and show that. Go ahead and show that path because that shows it pretty well.
Yeah, hold on just a second here.
It's like farthest west, Ken, from where they're going, so it's easier to get to them. What? Yeah, that what Levi just had that overlaid.
This one I want you to see. Yeah, here you go. Yeah, so this shows you the path that they take, and then others will fly Great Circle up this way, and they probably will use the SFO station. But all of this traffic to the southwest here is passing by Santa Barbara. So they are, and then when I'll bring this up here as well, you know, this is where they're flying out of, and then they're going out past Santa Barbara. So it just makes sense to put it as, you know, as far west as you can on land. The closest point, so when they do these ferry flights for small aircraft, they'll want to leave California from the closest point to Hawaii, and the closest point to Hawaii, the closest airport to Hawaii is Half Moon Bay Airport up in the Bay Area. So even though you'd think, well, why do they go all the way up north to fly to Hawaii? Well, they want to get the shortest distance between the two airports is actually because Half Moon Bay is so much further west than even we are. So you make up that distance by departing, and then you've got the shortest mile bird, you know, as the bird's eye line of sight goes, from land to land is Half Moon Bay to, I think, not Kona, the other side of the island, Hilo International Airport.
Are those the only two airports where we fly? I don't do much flying, so this is all kind of new to me. Are those the only two that go across the Pacific, and that's why you only need those two airing stations there?
Well, no, there's other flights that are going to leave from like Las Vegas and up north, but they're all going to pass through here at some point within range.
Oh, okay.
And then there are other, if you look at this, you'll see like up in Seattle, there's a station, and up along the Canadian and Alaskan coast up here, you've got San Francisco VHF frequency on 129.4, but you'd need a pretty big ducting event to be able to hear 129.4, I think.
So that was my next question. Okay, so it goes all the way up the coast. Got it. All right. Yeah.
Hey, Levi, I see this is in April 2020. Is this a current map or a late map?
Well, they don't change it very often. This is the latest version from the website as of the beginning of the week. So,
All right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Let me pull back up the grid here and see if anyone else has any questions.
I have one.
Who was that?
Orville, NA6J.
Oh, Orville, do you have one?
Do you have any questions?
No. Okay. I saw Tom's hand go up again.
I was doing that.
Oh, okay. Tom, did you wave at me? You disappeared.
Well, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I asked the guy. So I did ask the guys when I was flying to Alaska in, I don't know, I think it was September this year. Maybe it was October. I think it was September. They are in VHF coverage the entire way. So that little oval that they showed up there is amazing, because I thought, oh, you're going to be flying and you're on HF. And he says, I don't think we even have HF in our airplanes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting to say that, you know, they don't, you know, here they are flying all the way up, you know, up through the Gulf of Alaska there, you know, coming up and out of there, but they're all in VHF coverage range, which I thought was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're only required to carry HF if they're doing those oceanic flights. So if it's not considered oceanic and they're not going out of VHF range, then
they're not even ETOPS.
Yeah,
those flights are not even considered ETOPS, which is pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be.
But how much time passes between the time they're given the HF frequency and they actually get on it and start testing and reporting back? Are we talking seconds or half hour?
Or if I saw your hand go up, I'll come to you next. I usually, in the little experience I've had, it's been pretty quick. They want to get it done. It's like they are cleaned up from their departure, they're leveling out, or they're approaching their final or initial climb out altitude. And so they'll shift their attention away from air traffic control to getting ready for this oceanic part. Like I said, the Delta flight seemed to take forever. So they had other things going on, and they didn't even check in on VHF until they were almost outside the oval, which was a little strange. Usually I see them and they check in about a beam and a Kappa island typically, and they'll do VHF, and then as soon as they get the VHF frequency, they're over to HF. I don't know if there's any requirement or expectation like when they're supposed to do it, but it seems like they kind of, all right, we're going to do this now, and they just kind of do it rapid succession, get it done, get the cell call check done, and then turn it off for until their next reporting point. So I would say that if you are hearing them on VHF, expect to hear them within the minute or two on HF on the frequencies they were assigned.
Are the people responding to them
The same?
HF the same people that are on VHF?
I think so. No, I've heard some of the same voices, but maybe it's different. I don't know. I've heard some of the same recently, but
Well, I'm not sure about the situation around Santa Barbara right now. I was flying out mostly out of SFO, and the VHF stations were not actually co-located with the HF stations, so they're not the same people. And it only took when the pilot whoever is flying the airplane is occupied with all of that, but the other pilot then takes over communications and will be on the radio checking in and with the VHF and then later with HF and getting the assignment, the radio assignments, the frequency assignments. So it's usually very quickly. I mean, they simply call in and there's somebody there and they answer them.
Orville? Oh, you're muted, Orville.
Hold on. Yeah, I was just going to ask whether or not this presentation is going to be on YouTube.
Yeah, it'll be on YouTube. We'll put a link on the club website so you can go back and watch it there. It takes a few hours for it to digest and render and do all the good stuff, so it might not be there right away, but it'll be there at some point, either later tonight or tomorrow, so you can play it back. And also the PDF of my slides with clickable links will be alongside it on the sbarc.org website as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I might add, the YouTube, it's automatic. So as soon as we end this meeting, it'll start doing its thing. And then we have a channel there. We have all of our meetings that we're doing on Zoom are all archived there. So you can just go and look at anything. Unfortunately, my face keeps coming up as the, as the icon or the,
as the thumbnail. Yeah.
Yes,
At least it's
thumbnail.
not mine.
Yeah. Ken, is that you? No. What
Yeah.
Okay.
Propagation. I mean, I don't know the answer to it, but keeps coming up. It's, look how terrible propagation is right now, and how do they assure that when they go across the ocean? Like you surmise they must have receivers all over, transceivers all over, but even that.
I think when you get down near 80 meters, it's pretty reliable for a lot of the time. And if you've got the ability, and we as hams now have the ability with these web SDRs to use different receivers. So I'm going to guess that they network their receivers together and you're being heard somewhere. Even when propagation is bad, it just means that it's a shorter hop. So yeah, it's working somewhere, and they must have enough stations to assure coverage. Now, if there's a radio blackout, like a solar flare, and HF goes dark for several days, that's when I think they start to rely more on the satellite systems that they have, and they may have to do some relaying between aircraft. I'd be interested to know what happens when there's an HF radio blackout, and does that ever disrupt flight schedules, because there's a limited amount of resources, or at least there were traditionally. There's probably more now on the satellite side of things. So I don't know if that could cause a disruption, but you'll hear them primarily on HF, and that's of record their primary method of staying in contact with the shore while they're out over the ocean.
Very cool. I never knew.
Tom?
Remember the MH370 saga where they were actually using Inmarsat to track them? That was kind of an interesting thing. So I guess I know that Inmarsat is used by aircraft for, especially if the HF instead of HDFDL, if they have access to it, they'll use Inmarsat for all the ACARS type stuff. That's what I was told, because it's very inexpensive to do that. It's much more expensive to try and use voice over Inmarsat.
Yeah, and I know also, and I don't know if Inmarsat's part of it, but and it mentioned that on there for HF ACARs that they were also using, or the HFDL, the HF data link, that they were using it for ADSB. So the position reporting might be happening over satellite now as well, which gives them at least some positional information about where the aircraft are. Maybe not voice, but and again, as we know as hams, weak signal sometimes works better than voice. So if they can't get voice communication, maybe they can use the PSK modes and get data over HF during a blackout or poor propagation. So I'll be interested to hear if folks tune in and listen to it. And, the information is going to be all there in the presentation with links. So I encourage you to check it out, try to decode some of that digital traffic if that's your thing, and see what you can learn from poking around, because even when the ham bands are quiet and you might think there's no propagation on 40, or sometimes during the daytime, there'll be assigned frequencies that are closer to 20 or 15 meters. You might think those bands are closed, but if you hear aircraft traffic there, it's likely that the bands are open and just hams don't know to push the mic key to check on it. So it's worth listening and knowing those frequencies, if for nothing else, just for that purpose, to check on propagation.
Question for Wayne.
Power levels are at the transmitters. I know you said that planes you thought were 500 watts, or somebody mentioned, maybe Michael mentioned that, but I wonder what the transmitters are at the ground.
I don't know what the transmitters are on the ground. I heard you, Michael. I'll turn it over to you next. I don't know what the transmitters are on the ground. I know that what I saw was just 500-600 watts on the aircraft stations. I'm going to guess the transmitters on the ground are probably using more than that, but I'm not sure. I don't know if Chris is still. Yeah, Chris is still here. As he mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Chris W1 CSP up in the Bay Area is a longtime friend of ours. He said, well, we've known each other for 15 years. And I was like, high school was more like 30 years ago, Chris. But Chris and I went to high school together in Rhode Island, and he got his pilot's license before he got his driver's license. And he was my introduction to aviation. He helped me with some of the presentation here. I ran through it with him before I shared it with you guys, and he was the one who suggested ACARs and high frequency data link as a follow-up. I said, I'm not an expert on it, but at least I can learn a little bit and share it with you guys as a next step to explore. So I wanted to recognize him for his contribution to it as well.
Thank you.
Michael, you had a comment.
Oh, yeah, I was hopefully getting Wayne, but he obviously had discontinued. The thing was that I had for him was Bill and I have worked extensively with the AIS system. But the thing is I wanted to know if we are actually going to move to Diablo, and when is that going to happen?
Okay, so AIS, for those who don't know, is the ship tracking. It's very similar to what you saw on ADSB on the aircraft tracking map, except instead of airplanes, you're looking at ships. There's links to that on the SBARC website as well. AIS out on Diablo Peak, is that what you're asking about? When we're going to put an AIS receiver there?
Yeah, I just painted the radome for it, and we just need a helicopter to transport it, and that's the key point right there.
What the radome is for the microwave link, and that's going to go out there 2nd of December. That's independent of AI. I mean, AIS could use that microwave link, but that's primarily for the camera and will be used to link the 2-meter repeater.
That's what I wanted to find out. I didn't know if it was for the microwave or it was for the AIS system.
Everything out there comes back over the microwave. All data that's generated out on the island comes back over the microwave. So the microwave is basically the Cat 5 cable from Diablo to Lavaggia.
There's a new microwave stuff going out there, huh?
No, just replacing the radome.
Oh.
The radome there broke apart, so we took the one from Lavaggia down, and so we'll be installing that hopefully in early December.
Yeah,
and I just want to show quickly, if you guys are interested in checking this stuff out on the club website, if you go to communications tab here, you'll see information about the AIS marine traffic system, which is tracking ships, and the ADSB aircraft tracking system, which is the Earth Spot network that I showed you earlier. So both of those links are on there, and you can see how they work, as well as the information about the APRS, which is the ham version of digital position reporting. So that's all under the communications tab here on the site.
Marina had a comment in the chat.
Oh, go ahead, Marina. Or should we read it from the chat maybe, or is she going to unmute?
Yeah, unmute.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, my Ingrid, MQN, she wanted to know something. She wanted to know if any hams in Australia were ever able to track Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 before it went down in 2014. She said it's still missing.
I don't know. Does anyone know anything about it?
They're still looking for it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it was out of range of our station. 2014 was kind of before hams were doing this. I'd be surprised if that aircraft was ADSB equipped at the time. So it's something that probably wouldn't happen in the same way that it did today. It's a little harder to hide as an airplane today than it was 8-10 years ago, whatever. Well, less than 10 years ago.
There's Marina there, I think it's on KCET's website or one of those PBS things. There's a documentary about that that you can just watch. It's free. So I think it's either there or the History Channel app on, you can use on your phone or something. Cool. One of those two. There's a really good documentary about all the stuff that they've tried to locate that plane. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Is this the plane that actually was piloted by a female that launched off Santa Barbara Airport?
No.
So they're going through.
Tom has a question. Go ahead, Tom.
What they did was they used transit time from the satellite to the aircraft to try and locate MH370, which gave them 2 or 3 possible locations. That's why they kept looking in 2 or 3 locations. So they used multiple satellites with the delay time between them to try and identify where the aircraft could be in the probability of area. So it was a very large circle at the time. Nowadays, of course, with ADSB over Inmarsat and over HF, the HF data links and stuff like that, I suspect that you're right. That would be hard to hide an airplane now that has ADSB unless you disabled it.
Unless you disabled it, yeah. Unless you disabled it. And there's no requirement. I mean, there might be company policy, but there's no legal requirement to use it on an oceanic flight. So, you'd think you'd want to be found, but.
I think one of the problems was it was disabled at a certain point. They were supposed to report. Apparently, they had to trigger the reports manually or by decision, and they didn't do it at the time they were supposed to. And then, because one of the two in the cockpit had disabled the reporting system, that was at least alleged at a certain point in the investigation. I don't know where it went after that.
No, but it's also because the engines were automatically set up to ping. And so they were pinging the Inmarsat satellite, and that's how you got the data from the Inmarsat satellite. It's from the engines.
All right, Eric's next.
Oh, yeah. Does Eric have a question before you go?
No, just saying good night. You guys
okay.
want to have to get out of here. So,
all right. Thanks, Eric.
Good seeing you all. Great seeing you, Tom. Hope everything's okay and you're doing good. And hope to see you all soon in person.
Okay.
All right, Eric.
We got any more questions for Levi? Or I don't want to keep this going on all.
Yeah, if we've, I've been trying to kind of do it this, I don't know, not very sophisticated way of scanning the video grid here and see if anybody's raising their hand or waving at me. But if there are folks that are not wanting to turn on their camera and want to get attention, just click the raise hand button and the participants thing on the side there. I just want to make sure we don't miss anybody who's who doesn't have a camera or hasn't enabled their camera before we end the presentation.
Levi,
Yeah, go ahead.
thank you. Thank you for a very informational presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Levi. That was
Thanks, Levi.
Good job, Levi.
Presentation.
WBCOVD.
Very well done.
This will probably be one of our more popular downloads from YouTube. I think people watch it again. You know what? Maybe on Tuesday night, maybe we'll try some of this stuff on HF and try to do some PSK decoding or something, and see if we can't. That'd be kind of a fun thing to do. We haven't done that before. So when you get your stuff uploaded, your slides and everything, if you'll let me know, or send it out to the digital list and let people know, and we'll get everybody to download it and get the frequencies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. That 8.5-minute video is worth watching if it interests you. The guy kind of gives you a very good overview of it. I haven't checked it out yet. I don't know what the software looks like, but it can't be that hard to decode. I don't know if they're using exactly the same protocols that are in like Ham Radio Deluxe or FL Digi and the other ham programs, but if it looked like the ACAR system, there was a dedicated Windows program to decode it. So it should be pretty straightforward.
Okay. All
Thanks,
right,
Levi.
everybody. This has been a good meeting for an election night. Usually,
Really?
this would have also been a traditionally old timers night, but and
there was a dedicated Windows program to decode it. So
Daryl,
it should be pretty straightforward.
Okay. All right, everybody. This has been a good meeting.
I think that's our clue to leave.
Good night,
I ended
everyone.
the way
Good
we
night,
started
Ross.
it.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Drive carefully.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Levi.
Thank you, Levi.
Thank you, Levi.
Old timers night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks, Levi. That was great. That was
Have a
great.
good holiday if we don't see
Thanks,
each other
Levi.
in the new year.
Yeah.
Hey, is there a Zoom expert out there?
Everybody stop by my house for Christmas lights.
7-3, everybody.
7-3.
Bye-bye.
7-3.
There they go.
Thanks, everyone. Great presentation.